It's been really important to give the history from 1840 right through, so that they get a feel for our participation in the city and with civic duty. And they get a feel for the likes of Āpihae Te Kauau, who said in the court, "I didn't sell Auckland to the Europeans, I gave it to them, and I've constantly been looking for payment." So there's this sense of reciprocity.
My father was Tarahawaiki. His father was Tuperiri, and Tuperiri's tribe was Te Tāu. I was born at Ihumātao. The land belonged to the Waiohua when I was born. Tarahawaiki belonged to Te Tāu. The name of the people who lived in the country from the Waitemata to the Manukau were the Waiohua and the Ngāiwi. The Tāu were driven into this country by the Waiohua. It was on the account of the massacre at Waituoro. Wahākiaki avenged this massacre. He belonged to the Tāu. The people who owned Kohimarama, Ōrākei and Taurarua were killed by Te Tāu. They were the Ngāiwi and Waiohua. The pā at those places were destroyed by the Tāu. Te Tāu captured all the pā of Ngāiwi. Tuperiri took the last one. It was when people were killed in the days of Tuperiri that Tāu came here. They came to Maunga Kie and built a pā. Only Te Tāu lived on this side of Tāmaki then.
In my Wairua's rovings one night, a once familiar figure landed before me out of a pale wisp of cloud as I sat on crumbling Whakatakataka Point above Ōrākei Bay, looking out over the Waitemata. "O Paora," I said, "I was just thinking of you and wondering what you would make of it all if you were to return to your beloved bay and the harbour where you so often steered your beautiful tahere tiki-tiki."
"My boy, I often return here,"
said Paora as he sat down on the grass and took his pipe and homemade twist torori out of his pocket, borrowed a match and lit up. He then continued,
"I've watched over the place of my youth and my strength and my old age ever since they laid my body down under the trees yonder in front of my house in Ōkahukainga. And my thoughts are many and sad and deep. Now I tell you, I was wondering about the reinga a little while ago, or it may have been a long, long while ago, for we have no time in the place of shades, when I met my old cousin, Tehira Te Kawa. You remember Tehira? Who had more tattoo than I have, and a white moustache like an old colonel of the soldiers. And who should be with him but Te Kāmera, my good old friend, Sir John Campbell, who once had a land buying disagreement with Tehira, but they're good friends now."
"You are a matakiti, Paul, I know, and you are a seer. You pierce through those mists of death that keep me bound, and you can see what is doing in the world of light that we left so long ago. Now tell me, Paul, how fares it with my beloved old home?"
But I do remember that there were often, huis were often called down there, and they were held in the Te Purua Tāmaki, our tupuna house, even arguments among families. The place to talk about that was in the whare. So they would bring these people together, the advocates would bring them together and have a meeting to iron out any difficulties. It was real commune living in a way that was done in a very Māori way. There was a lot of burning down that was taking place during the eviction of our people, and that was the smoke from the houses. I watched it go out across the beach, and it never rose. It stayed on the water. For what reason, I don't know, but it's something I'll never forget.
A whole lot of my people were hurt by the burning down of our village in the 1950s for the sole purpose getting rid of those Māoris because the Queen was coming. Queen Elizabeth II was coming to Aotearoa, and they had to remove the village out of sight, out of mind. And that's what drove Joe Hawke to lead the occupation on Bastion Point. He'd had sort of a fine-tuning on the Land March. He saw what good leadership meant. He saw what good communication meant, having strong messages. And so he was primed and led the occupation 506 days on Takaparawhai.
Ka kite I te moana, ka pā ki te whenua, ka rongo I te o wairua e re haere ana, re haere ana. Ka pā ki tōku manawa, te iwi kua ka poe, kua ngaro ki te tupo te tini, ke monga kie aue. Taka para fau aue, aue.
And so in 87, when the Minister of Lands, when the Crown agreed to give the marae back, and that took a bit of persuasion by the then Trust Board to basically say, well, I think it is time that we give the marae back. So that sort of corridor had happened. There was a lot of hurt personal feeling to a lot of people. You know, it was sad for me on those days. I suppose what it was the feeling grateful was we had the ability to negotiate for our whenua, something that we've never been in a position to ever do before in our whole history. So when I look back and go to say, well, the great things that people had done, you know, what Joe began, and we had the graciousness of Tāhiu. And I can remember the corridor that Uncle Happy and Uncle Brownie, all the older ones who began their corridor while it wasn't right up to where we are today. But the beginning of that was the essence of having the ability to talk about a settlement.
So it'd be fair to say it takes a whole lot of people to make a claim.
Yep, well for us it did. Everybody was contributing at that time. I didn't go into the final reading room. I watched it on TV. I was just like, we had the pōwhiri outside and it was great. Ngāti Whātua was there. And then there was only limited seats because I think there was another hearing directly following ours. So people were moving around. So I watched it outside. It was so solemn. Well, I think it wasn't jubilant. It was just solemn as well. We've done the job. For all these years, getting to this stage, it's like, you know, what's our next challenge? It wasn't the end of it. It's just one job. There were still outstanding cultural redress that had to be addressed, namely the maungas, the motus. So it's not the Y388, but it was the next challenge, and which we thought we had negotiated a package just for Ngāti Whātua based on our mana whenua and tamaki. We got so far and then that process was stopped. So what did we do? We joined with other mana whenua groups of Tamaki Makaurau to further that. And that's what happened with the Tamaki Collective Settlement Bill.
In the office in 2004, which was a couple of years after the Trust had signed an agreement to negotiate with the then Labour government, my job was to come in and design our cultural redress strategy. Effectively, the uncles and aunties asked me to get our mountains back. So that was a pretty big task. So I had to come up with that strategy, which was to identify those cultural sites that are important to us across the whole rohe, and then to work out how we might have our mana recognised in them under the existing Crown policy. So, you know, as we all know, the Crown can only transfer sites it owns and wants to transfer. So that limited the number of sites that we could get back. At that time, it was Maunga Whau, Maunga Kiekea, Puke Tāpapa, Mount Roskill and Pourewa, and the information that they had given us. So those were the sites that we sought to have transferred back into our title and then to be co-managed with the council. That was my job. And that culminated in the cultural redress that was offered in the agreement in principle around 2006, which included Maunga Kiekea, Maunga Whau, Puke Tāpapa and Pourewa.
It was a very emotional time reconnecting with this mountain. Growing up, I never heard anything about them, but we saw them all the time. I never felt welcome to come up here until my nephew, Ngāti Whātua, brought me up here with one of the cousins, very good friend, Peter Ture, and took me for a walk around here, and boy, it became really quite emotional. And since then, of course, it's like I belong, right? And it's a wonderful feeling to connect with those things of the past, those people of the past, and to try and revive some of those basics of life.
Oh, the legacy of the land. Well, that stretches a long way back, really, with those who suffered the desecration of our papakainga, Tēnei Rokahu Matamumue, those who fought for the whenua in such a tauterangi Māori way with the Bastion Point, and those who created this ecological restoration project. I acknowledge Charmaine Wheelpool and Ngārimu Blair on behalf of all the kaitiaki that have come into this project. I acknowledge them and salute them because they are the true legacy of this project that we have created for our people.
Kia ora. The Trust is mandated to operate under its trust deed, which was part of our settlement back in 2011. The purpose of the Trust is to receive, administer, protect and govern the Trust assets culturally and the commercial side and also our social development side for the benefit of our whānau of Ngāti Whātua ŌRākei. That's the legal term whānau, but the real mandate is the fact that we know that we are here as a consequence of the blood, sweat and tears of our tupuna, our aunties, our uncles, our nannies, our nanny pas, and our whānau who worked so hard and made some major sacrifices in the battle to have our whenua returned to us, to have our moana cared for, and to also ensure that our whānau were protected under our settlement. So for me, that is the real purpose as to why the Trust exists, is to ensure the vision and the tūmanako of our ones that have gone is realised in today's for our whānau today. So where are we now in 2020? Well, the legacies that our tūpuna had set for us are still real and really relevant in today. Today in 2020, and because of their pukumahi and everything that they did to ensure that we would be in a strong position has actually come to fruition for them, and for me I'm really grateful. We have the means and the resources to protect our settlement, to protect our heartland, and more importantly, to tell our history and give our whakapapa of why we are here in Central Tāmaki. And it's all because of that work that was done before today. The other thing is that we want to remain pono and tika in everything that we do, because if anything, that is our greatest value, the fact that we can do our commercial deals using pono and tika, our iwi relationships being pono and tika, and even right down to keeping our home fires burning, being pono and tika and about that, and not going outside of our heartland, but continuing to protect what we have now. So where are we going to be in 2025 and even further out to 2050? Well, the Trust went on a haerenga and we went out to our whānau across Aotearoa and Australia, and we asked them to help us co-design a long-term plan, which included their visions and aspirations, not only for their whānau but for their mokopuna. This was a great exercise and everyone just thoroughly enjoyed engaging with whānau. From that we developed our 5-year plan, and out of that came one of the top priorities from our whānau, and that was about cultural identity. It was one of the most important things for them, and we heard this very, very clearly from them, that they wanted to know what they were, who they were as Ngāti Whātua ŌRākei. So we incorporated these into the plans that we offered down to Whaimaia and to Whairawa and also to our marae.
Kia ora koutou, ko rangi Māori e huni a tōku ingoa, ko au te kai whakahaere mō Whaimaia. Tēnā koutou. So what is the role of Whaimaia? Whaimaia came out of the treaty settlement of the Y388 treaty settlement in 2011. We are essentially a delivery arm for the Ngāti Whātua ŌRākei Trust. We focus on 3 key things: people, culture and the environment.
So that's probably more of a personal view, but I'd really like to think that by 2050 Ngāti Whātua ŌRākei will be an absolute economic powerhouse and really embedded in the fabric of Tāmaki Makaurau and the nation. And from a commercial point of view, and this will probably sound a bit blunt, but I'd like to think that Whairawa is playing its part in generating really a lot of wealth and cash flow, such that any ambition that Ngāti Whātua ŌRākei has or any member has should never be limited by financial capability. The opportunities should be limitless for Ngāti Whātua ŌRākei and for Ngāti Whātua ŌRākei members.